Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here to interview Species. So this is basically a raunchy Men in Black movie, and don't mind it, in all honesty. Yeah, this movie doesn't hold up very well, let's admit that right out of the gate, but I think there is some good elements about this film, even though it's really just like, how many times can we just see Cell's character, the real actress's name is Natasha, like, how many times can we just see her with her top off, or eventually see her by the later half of the film be in the throes of some bedroom, let's just say. And so this movie can go on and remind me of films like The Hidden, or even the movie Decoy, the first movie that I think was actually good, and then like the sequel that is just like, okay, we made our money, so let's just kind of make up this story where the aliens like aren't trying to be the bad guys in the film, and it's just kind of like milking it out after that. But it's also just quite similar to, in the aspect of, in this film we have Cell's character that has her slither nips, and what I mean by slither nips is like just snakes coming out of the nips. I was like, all right, yeah, like that is actually really a cool idea. And in Decoys, like it just kind of comes out of the chest, and they have a whole thing about them needing to exist in like cold temperatures and so on and so forth. But anyways, so uh, we have, for Species, also like, if it isn't to go on and be a movie that has aged well, especially with that special effects, and also there is some things that it goes on and does in this film that's like, oh, that didn't turn out well. But like that bathroom stall thing, like I was like, oh my god, they have a bathroom stall kill. But then when you actually look at it, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't look that great. What were they thinking? uh like, what were they thinking about that take? Like, was that the best one that they could have figured to have worked? Like, man, what a mistake. But I love the fact that they actually had a bathroom kill in this movie, or bathroom stall kill. So also, I really liked Forrest Whitaker's character. He was like the best thing of this entire movie. He made this movie entertaining. Because if you're really just thinking that the whole entire time, like, these manhunter of a team is to just be so uh seemingly just like on the just near misses to get to this girl, we have Forrest Whitaker's character Dan, who is to help us go on and like figure out where this alien is, so like it doesn't take us a million years to just have our characters go on and just be looking for this girl, and look for her in, most of the time, just kind of dumb locales and locations, because Dan's character is to quite possibly give these people a better advantage of making this a better paced film. So with that said, like, also there is to be like some negatives. Like, I honestly feel like the alien hunter team, like, or the man hunting team, like, not all those characters really have like their best usages. Like, really, most of them are just kind of there. Like, Finch is really just like the leader guy that tells people every once in a while what to do, but I feel like Preston does a really just better job at that through a good chunk of the film. And Steven, the long haired guy that a lot of people probably know from Spider-Man 2 is Dr. Octopus, or Doc Ock. Like, what does he really do besides like give some like sciencey jargon at some points? and really, like, he is just more useful by the later half of the movie by doing something stupid. And then we go on into, like, okay, we just need a girl in the group that eventually does go on and, like, showcase some usefulness. But again, like, really the only real use for her is to just end up with Preston's character. And I'm like, God, like, what was the point of this team? Like, you could have really have, like, saved some money and, like, not had to have had a team. Uh, because really, I would have just wanted Preston and Dan to just be a team together, and that's all they needed. Like, everyone else eventually ends up just kind of like, they're gonna have to figure out a way to just thin out this herd at some point. Not all of these people are gonna make it out of this film. But so I'm to go on and say that this movie is a X-rated movie that is to have somehow made it into mainstream. If you really just think of the bare bones basic idea of a alien that is to go on and want to be pregnated with bizarrely a human seed, like, that really is just like a an X-rated film, but somehow it is to have made its way into becoming a legitimate movie that eventually is just spun off of so many um, movies and this and that and what or have you. But so Species, for how really just uh this movie is to be a long slog of a film for, I'm sure, a lot of people, there are just some interesting moments in this film. So with that said, I want to go on and say that, like, I have to admit that this movie probably doesn't hold up very well. Um, like, it reminded me so much so of the movie that I also reviewed recently called Jailbait, which was like, yeah, you're really just here to just see, like, uh the melons on this girl. And then also, like, this movie is just kind of built to build up Natasha's character Cell, and really everyone else is just there. Um, but also, I liked that this movie was to also to try to be smart, was to also try to be intelligent. It tried to do more than just flash the goods. And so for that, I can go on and say that this movie is more than just fine. Um, but again, like, it's really just like like being the like, ooh, look at the hot girl. Like, yeah. Um, so surprisingly, this movie is going to be better than fine. It's going to be okay at the end of the day. It's an okay film. Um, Really, I think a lot of people will probably have a wide range of how they feel about this movie. Some people will probably go on and say, yeah, this movie was freaking great. Like, this movie is so entertaining. And, like, some people may say that it's an awful film or it's a bad film, and all it is just, like, skin, and that's about it. Uh, but yeah, but, like, I'm to go on and say that, like, I had gone on and seen, like, bits and pieces of this film, but never to really know if I ever saw it fully. So, like, this is my first actual experience of it, I feel. I do, or I have, in the past seen, I think, a sequel to this movie. Uh, I really remember, I think, the sequel more so than I do remember the original, so that's kind of weird. Like, I don't know why I went on and saw the sequel movie instead of this movie, but without really knowing it fully. But maybe I probably did see this movie and it just kind of quickly just, like, in my brain and out, because it was all just like, man, this movie's really just simplistic. But so, with that said, I think it's about that time to just rush into spoilers for this film because there is not much else for me to go on and say about it. As well as also, I'm sure probably within spoilers, I probably will have a number of things also to like, oh yeah, this and that. I have to talk about this. But so, what is this movie about? We come to find that these people had gone on and sent a signal out via a telescope, and it seems that they had gotten some responses of some alien life. That is to put together a DNA sample to have them create this alien being. And then, when having this alien being caged up, not knowing exactly how strong it is or really how durable this thing can be, because really there's very rare amounts of alien that has been put together here. They go on and realize that this thing is to go on and escape, explore the world, and conveniently so easily make its way through it, and then eventually try and escape or make a movie of a race against time where the alien is going to have to now, by the end of this, have a standoff against its man hunting team, or in this case, woman hunting team. And so, with that said, you're gonna get more like topless things than you are actual like uh, you know. But I think people will go on and possibly feel satisfied enough of the skin within this movie. Uh, but regardless, I actually was also to be like satisfied enough via the story of this movie. Yeah, because I go into the dirty mags for the story. What is the story? Just this girl, just in all of her glory. Uh, but um, but I was like, man, like Natasha in this movie, like good grief, like man, really building up this actress really well in this film, and like good for her to go on and take uh doing these movies and just kind of really build a good substantial career out of it. So even though probably a lot of it was in like other sci-fi movies somewhere down the road. But anyways, so but yeah, a lot of this also felt like Men in Black. If you honestly look at Preston, you're just like, well, that's obviously like Tommy Lee Jones. And if you kind of look at like the weapons that they have in the later half of this movie, you're just like, okay, like that's some weird, goofy flamethrower ash like weaponry or cannon guns of some kind. That it's like, okay, like that is to go on and seem quite similar to like the Men in Black guns from the later half of that movie. And so yeah, so uh, I also could appreciate this movie with its actual seemingly horror genre. That I actually did actually have some jump scares that actually got me. I was like, all right, I wasn't quite knowing what to expect at certain aspects of this film, and the jump scares actually got me. I'm like, good, great. Like I was happy that that happened because like I've watched so many horror films where nothing is ever scary or there is to always be like the wind up and the pitch. And I'm like, okay, like, so the monster is going to come from behind the character because it's not coming in front of them, it's not coming from the sides, it's coming from behind them. And then, like, plop, and I'm like, oh, yeah, of course, that's where it's shocker there. so, so I got some enjoyment out of this. And also, I got to see a woman naked. So it's kind of like the Jeff Foxworthy stand up special where he's like, I want a beer and I like to see something naked. Like that's basically like for probably a lot of men's brains is probably the just like the boil it all down to just being very simple. And you also get like the Harrison Ford movie, like the 7 days, 7 nights, where like Harrison Ford is trying to tell the woman in that movie, it's like men are really just very simple. They are very simple. But anyways, I think it's about that time to just go on and go into full on spoilers about this movie. I think I got everything out, like spoiler wise, what I wanted to get into. But fortunately, if there's anything left for me to go on and say, like I feel like I can say it later on within the spoilers. Like I don't know if I've already said this yet, so I'll probably repeat myself. So I apologize. Like I don't feel like the Manhunt team has much of real true usefulness. Like I think besides Preston and Dan, like Forrest Whitaker's character, the psychic character, which I actually loved and thought that was the best part of this movie. No one else really mattered. Like they're all cannon fodder, and so uh, and I also thought it was just kind of really funny how we have Natasha's character that is just be this so naive character that just kind of stumbles throughout the world and everybody just kind of like just lets her be, just lets her do her thing. And so yeah, like that was just kind of the things of which that was just like, okay, this girl is to never just get so like caught or whatever, because she probably wouldn't allow it to happen because she would just outmuscle anybody. But uh so with that said, I think that this movie is also fairly well rounded. You can go on and you can get scared. You can have a good laugh at just this movie not holding up. Like I feel that this movie is to go on and just be like to have a good enough story, and so yeah, so like it's a okay movie at the end of the day. I think that this movie is available on Tubi, I believe. But if not, you can go on and check this movie out because I didn't go and actually watch it on Tubi. I watched it on other apps that I've in fact been using for a very long stretch of time. Zelifonic, Zelivonic. You can also go on and watch this movie on an app called Moopzy, Moopzzi. Fortunately, with that said, I think it's about that time to just break out the spoilers and go on and just rattle off anything that I'm to go on and remember within this film. And maybe bash it, maybe enjoy it, and just have a good old time. So with that said, I think it's about that time to just go into spoil time. Spoil time. It's about that time. I'm going to spoil this movie. Let me know in the comments below what is to be your favorite, maybe either science fiction movie, or maybe this was actually in the horror genre. I'm not quite sure. Maybe science fiction horror film, or what is to be your movie that has like a science fiction element to it, and also is to have just a load of skin. Maybe it's Species. Maybe go on and tell me what is to be your favorite Species movie. Maybe you only like the first one and that's the only one you saw, or maybe you had gone on and seen the sequels or whatever was to eventually follow. Funny enough, I think I remember the actual sequel of this movie than the original. I think the original is kind of like completely lost in my mind. But I think the sequel we have like the guy alien being focused, and then it's eventually like the merging of getting the female alien and male alien like together, and uh like that was just like an interesting just kind of play out of things, as well as also like there's the one scene where the guy just takes a shotgun to himself and then it just completely just reforms back, and then the guy is just still alive trying to figure this all out. So that is go on and be the whatever the sequel one is for you. I don't know if that's two or maybe one of the movies down the road. I don't quite remember the sequels all that well, of which one is which, but I do remember one of the sequels. So they have this radio telescope that goes on and is to send this signal out into the ether, and they had gotten two responses. So this response ends up having them find some DNA thing that they put together within a lab, and then they make a life form out of it. So they end up putting this life form in this seemingly, I guess, reinforced glass case, and like it's like they're watching it and they're studying it, and they're also thinking about, well, like, I think we have to go on and kill this thing because we're not quite sure what's going on with it. And they'll go on in the movie and explain the progression of why that had to happen. So all of what we see here in the early parts of this movie is we have these white coats that are bringing in this cyanide to lead to us realizing that uh, that Cell here is going to get killed within her her dome of a dome of a cage. And we have Finch who's going on and saying the words "I'm sorry" to Cell, and she's like, "Oh, you're sorry? Sorry for what?" So this glass comes in, this cyanide comes in through these containers into this dome of a cell, and as the gases start to surround a cell, she then punches through this glass and just kind of rolls her way, or kind of flips her way into getting out of this cell. And so Cell goes on and is to make her way through uh this warehouse of sciency place, and trying to figure out the proper wordages to go on and just say here. She makes her way through this facility. That's a better word. She makes her way through this facility. She jumps uh, over top this barbed wire fence, and she quickly goes on and is to find this train. And there is a manhunt trying to make their way to find her. So we have Cell that awakens via having this hobo scare her, and so she outmuscles this hobo, flings him against this wall and kills him, and then decides to take all of his stuff and uh and find his clothes and just kind of put on his clothes, so that way she can kind of much more better hide herself in plain sight here. So Finch is going on and telling his two suits that it's like, well, okay, like it seems that there had gone on and been a train that had passed here, so like we need to go on and figure out if she is on that train. And the guys looking at Finch is like, well, she can't be that fast to have caught that train. And Finch is like, no, she can be that fast. Kind of like telling us right early on, like that this alien is to be this strong uh, character, as well as also to have busted through that glass probably takes some real strength also, because if you look at it, uh, like for a normal human to bust through a windshield, like that is like an impossible task. So really, for us to have Seal like break through that whatever that hardened glass was, yeah, like I'm sure that was to be a very difficult or impossible task for a normal human to try and accomplish that so easily. So Cell makes her way to this station, and she goes into this like I will call it, I guess, like a convenience store part of this the station, and she starts to see that there is one guy who is like actually buying things, and a woman is like having this credit card machine, and Cell is kind of looking on it, like kind of like taking certain things, and the woman's like, "Well, are you gonna pay for that?" And then all of a sudden, Cell like drops it and then runs off. So Cell grabs a bag and then gets back onto the train, and like no one stops her, like, "Excuse me, ticket." Nobody. Like she just goes right back on the train, and nobody has no never mind. So Cell ends up grabbing this bag, and it ends up being this camcorder of this footage that Cell starts watching. And so then Cell starts to make her way throughout the train and just starts uh thieving stuff, stealing things. And so she rips this one locked drawer, um and she takes all of this money. Then she goes on into this one place that is to have um these just kind of kitchen cleaning tools, and then also some bananas and some oranges, and she steals some of the bananas, and then she bites into the bananas. She doesn't like peel the banana, but I'm like, well, yeah, like that's the obvious, like she sees it as food, but she doesn't know really what it is. So she's just biting the she's not unpeeling the banana, because of course she isn't, because she's an alien and so she wouldn't know. So there ends up being one of the like the train conductor characters that makes their way into that same area that that Cell is in, and so she has to kind of hide for a bit, and then the guy walks off, and so Cell makes her way. So Cell goes back into her her room, let's just say, in this train, and there's to be this one like I want to keep calling these people conductors because I don't know the actual proper train technical word. And so these, like, let's call them attendants, I guess. So that way I can kind of squeeze my way out of this. Or squeeze my way out of this. Get my just thing to just have some person that I don't know the name of a name. So this attendee is to make their way into Cell's room, and is to be talking about how like young this girl looks, and it's like, oh, are you expecting to have somebody at the next stop? Like, are you gonna have a parent or something with you? And Cell's like, oh, sure, yeah. So this attendee is looking at this young girl. It's like, you know what, like, how about we go on and just say that you're younger than you are, so you can get a better price on these tickets. And so, like, this attendee doesn't go on and do any no never mind about this girl. Like, it's like, well, I guess you're just kind of old enough. Like, whatever. So she just lets it slide, and that'll probably be one of her life regrets, because we'll get there. So Finch and his team discovers the train, and also, like, when I say Finch and his team, I don't mean the actual manhunting team. I just mean Finch and two other suits. We don't get Dan and uh and Preston and the two other science character guys until later in this movie, until a little bit later. So because when I say a little bit later, I say right after this, because that's what really just kind of happens here. So they find the homeless person that Cell had killed, and so they're kind of like surely on the path of finding this woman. So, but also we have to remember that like Cell switched trains, so she's not on that train anymore with that homeless person. She's on a completely different train. So Preston is going on and getting called away for work. So he hands off his cat to this woman. I was like, all right, like that's actually like a clever like character thing. Like that is actually good that they actually did go on and do that because it's like it's a reasonable thing. So we also go on and have Dan who is at this uh this therapy session with a doctor named Victoria. And so Dan is going on and talking about like how he feels when he's around people, and Dan also tells Victoria that she's going to get a knock on the door, and then so she does. And Victoria's like, "Oh well, I'll just let that be because I'm not expecting anybody." And so Dan eventually ends up opening the door. And he's like, "Oh no, it's not for you, Victoria. It's for me." And then the guy ends up starting to talk. It's like, "Oh yeah, like it is for him." So Cell is having nightmares. So we find out that she is dreaming. And this is what is possibly to have done her in the early part of this film. But so Cell is seeing this train as this weird, goofy murder machine. And it has spikes and it's trying to get at her. And so she's running away from it in her dream. But then, of course, she goes on and awakes. And it's just start to chow down on food because the people go on and realize like okay I guess she can eat normal food and she's really stacking on the calories, and we would have to assume that the stacking on of calories is to really just matter because of her eventual going into her cocoon, her dormant stage. So because as Cell starts eating this food, this pudding and all kind of assortment of items, she then all of a sudden is starting to have her skin start to bubble, and she's like, "Oh, what's this?" And like her cheeks are blowing up, and all of a sudden, like stuff is starting to pop out of her cheeks, and that all of a sudden has all of these like these tethers and twines that all are to be coming out of course Cell's body to say that she's going to go into this cocoon. So Preston makes his way to this facility and he goes on and meets with this group of these scientists. I want to say that like I probably don't remember the girl's name. I think her name is Baker. So if I say that incorrectly, I think her name is like Laura Baker. If I say that incorrectly, you guys can go on and correct me in the comments. Uh, but like reasonably, we could just say that besides Dan and Steven and Preston, like if I am to not know who really the actual name of Baker is, uh, then you could probably figure it out by default. So but I honestly like the fact when Preston kind of comes in here, he actually takes his team and actually starts to size them up already. Because when Preston goes in there, like, he goes on to ask, like, Dan about, like, okay, well, who are you? Like, and, like, are you legitimately to be, like, a clairvoyant character like you say you are? And so Dan goes on and is to say that, like, that Preston is to be this like kind of just very hunter character, and like is to be as curious as the rest of them are, and then so like Steven and Laura ends up saying these gobbledygook, just sciencey words of who they are, and that was completely just whew, like lost on me. And so Preston goes on and says that he's a man that comes in for the government when has really hit the fan, and so and they go on and like, well, what kind of things? And he's like, well, something that like I would rather have it kept secret. So a lot of this just kind of like setting up who Preston is, as well as also setting up who Dan Moore is in this movie. I was like, all right, like we're really like I know like Dan has a much more like stronger stretch of who Preston is, and I'm kind of really thinning it out here, but also I'm trying to thin out this review as well. Um, but yeah, so but Dan gets like a thorough like gist of who Preston is. So we have this attendee, this same attendee who had gone on and talked to Sel before, and was going to give her a discount on being young. And so the attendee makes her way back to Sel's room, and is to eventually find this massive alien cocoon that it seems that she has to go on and just see whatever the heck that this is, which leads her to be grabbed, pulled into the cocoon, and killed because it ends up finding out that they figure out that her larynx is crushed. So that was like a really good jump scare. I actually like that jump scare. And then we just see Cell's body come sliding out of this cocoon, and I was like, all right, that's not only a pretty decent visual, but also like just really cool how they possibly did that. How like she's like ripping out of it and then flops out of it. Like that whole thing was actually really cool. I liked that how they did that. So Finch now comes into the group and is to now have to go on and have them go from one side of this room to have to sit on another side of the room. I was like, God, Finch is already just being like an a-hole already. But also, I just thought that, like, man, we really just have to do this whole thing just for camera angles. I'm like, this is stupid. So, Finch is now going on and setting up that in 1974, they had gone on and figured out this DNA sequence to put together this alien being in this test tube. So they made like a test tube alien baby. And they also had gone on and kept some of the samples also like on ice. They cryogened it. But one they had gone on and decided to make a baby out of. So come to find out that this alien had gone on to progress in age quite rapidly. And unfortunately, what led to the last real time that they had gone on and seen said alien girl was really just because they noticed that she was starting to have nightmares, and her nightmares were starting to make her body just kind of just jolt a little. And so so Dan goes on and is to feel uh what really Cell was going through at that moment, and saying that she was having nightmares and she was scared, and also having like Dan understand it's like, oh, like you really didn't want to kill her, did you? And also like I guess because you guys were so just afraid of her that you had to kill her. And Vince was like, but yeah, like that's what we did. That's what we had to do. That's what we tried to do. So it was interesting how like Finch also said like the reason why they decided to make a female alien was that they thought that like the female alien would be docile and easier to control. And so eventually within this film, like Preston kind of throws that back at Finch. He's like, "Oh yeah, she was so easy to control, right? Like, man, this is like so easy to just try to reobtain this alien, uh-huh. Sure, yeah, like what a dummy you are, Finch." So we then have Cell who takes on the attendee's outfit because she doesn't have anything else that is more like adult-ish like clothes, even though she stole clothes from adult hobo. But so as Cell makes her way through this train station, I guess there had been some reports going out about uh, certain blonde kids via a train station should start to be collected because we all of a sudden have all these agents, and there's just a bunch of blonde haired girls that are all being collected at a certain part of the train, and then Cell's looking at them like, what's going on here? And then she just continues to just walk on. So uh the alien man hunting team makes their way to the train of the dead attendee, and we have Steven that goes on and mentions like, "Oh, well, that must be some kind of crystallization or cocoon or whatever." I'm like, "Good for you! You have some kind of line to just deliver here because you don't have a lick of nothing anywhere else." And so, like, there is one moment where he goes on and he's talking to Finch, right around like the pool scene, where he yeah like he does add on to something that actually is like, all right, like he's actually thinking. But any other like yeah like he's just a guy that's there, sadly enough. So they go on and they realize like, okay, since this woman is now dead, like Preston goes on and tells one of the suited guys is like, well, hey, like it seems that uh Cell had gone on and took this woman's credit cards. So if we see that this credit card is getting used anywhere in the system, we can track that down and get to her. So hey, look into the credit card transactions and hunt her down. Which I was like, all right, yeah, like they're getting really clever here. So Finch is also turning to Dan and like seeing what his thoughts are on what this girl would try to go on and try to do. So, because of course Dan will have like a feel for her. So Cell makes her way to try and get an exchange of clothes. She goes to this bridal shop of all things because I guess she just looks at these dresses like, ooh, these look really nice. So she makes her way into this bridal shop and she picks out this dress and the woman's like $100. And I'm like, wow, like it's a good thing that this somehow had uh Cell having $100 here. Because I'm like, man, that is a huge chunk of change to just have for actual money. So the woman is like, man, like, you should be a lot better with your money because, like, I could have gone on and really taken advantage of you, but she didn't. So Finch and his team make their way uh, to this like hotel. And so Finch is going on and telling these guys like, well, hey, like we're transferring all of our assets to this kind of secure location, and so you guys can all just go on and hang out here, and And then when we kind of get word of where we can kind of follow next, like we're gonna take that and run with it. So Stella makes her way to a motor hotel, and she pays for this room, and like probably gives this guy way too much money, and so goes into this room and turns on this TV and starts watching it, to where she's starting to watch either, I think there was at one point where I think she might have been watching Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, and then also she was watching these kind of goofy commercials where people were smiling and she's smiling, and there was to be, of course, this one Skin movie where people were kissing and starting, and so she was like watching that, and so we had Laura that wanted to go on with the team and possibly put together another alien like uh similar to Cell, so that way they can go on and figure out a way to possibly defeat this alien within this contained space. So they decide to go on, and they start to like scientifically like put this sample together, but then all of a sudden they realize that one of the cameras had gone down. So Laura's taking all this time in the world to just ask this other like scientist in the back. It's like, well, hey, like, do you have a camera? And the girl is like, well, yeah, we probably have another camera. And so Laura's like, well, okay, well, I'll just go in there myself and install it myself. And then Preston's like, well, I'll go in there with you. So they are really milking this scene out. So they go into this contained space, and so Finch, Dan, and Steven are all watching on, seeing what's going to come out of this. So they go on and they open up this place that is housing this this alien sample. So like, let me go on and let me break this down for you. So there is to be this very small uh little glass displayer thing that is to house the alien presence. But then there's also, on top of that, there is another even bigger container thing. And then there is to go on, and the outside of that is to be Dan, Finch, and uh, and Steven here all just kind of watching on. So both Preston and Laura are trying to fasten back up this container so it's sealed again, and they end up losing one of the screws, and it goes through this gap, and they just can't get to it. So Dan is realizing that he is sensing something going wrong, and so when finally they look at the camera feed, they're like, oh my god, like the sample is starting to blow up, and they just need to get the heck out of there now. So everybody's starting to go on and starting to freak out here, and Preston is trying to hold this containing thing that is keeping this sample at bay. So what ends up happening is the sample ends up getting out, and it is in the bigger size containment area. And now Laura and Preston are like running around with chickens with their heads cut off, like trying to figure out a way to get around this sample. And Preston is figuring out a way to try and defeat it. He tries to go on and take one of these like hoses, makes a flamethrower, and blast this thing. And so we start to realize that this thing has a weakness to fire. And then also Preston is to take this one long pipe of a thing and try to like smash one of the aliens. But again, this alien thing just keeps going on and bubbling up. And so Preston is going on, or Preston, Finch is going on the outside, and he's telling them, guys, you have 2 minutes, or I'm going to burn the whole entire room for safety because we can't let this get out. So Dan and Steven are telling Finch, is like, no, we can't just do that. Like, we can't kill these people. Like, we're gonna let them try and escape, and like whatever happens, happens. So, uh, so Steven hits the button and lets them escape, and Preston and Laura get out, and Finch is like, well, hey, like, you don't understand, like, I need to follow protocols. And then, like, your protocols, like, you. So they burn the container and the thing dies. So they're like, okay, well, I guess, like, if anything is to not be ruled out that this thing can't be easily defeated, like, I guess uh, fire is its own real deterrent. So Cell is to go on, and is to somehow find undergarments, bras and panties, and so she puts them on, but she doesn't quite know exactly how they are to be put on, so she's kind of like putting them on backwards. It's kind of funny. So Cell makes her way back to the motel clerk and is to ask him, it's like, well, hey, like, is there any good places to find men here? And so he kind of points her to like this inn. And so the clerk also goes on and tells the girl, it's like, well, hey, I need a credit card just for specific bills. Like, if you ever go on and you destroy the hotel, or if you rack up Cinemax films or something, like, I gotta go on, I gotta need, like, your credit card. So she hands him this credit card, and she completely just walks off. And he's like, oh, wait, like, take this back. It's like, hey, you won't want to have this in the wrong hands, but she is the wrong hands. So Preston is at his hotel room, and he gets a call from Finch stating that, like, hey, we got a ping on the credit card, so like we know where to go next. So uh so Cell makes her way to this almost nightclub of place, but I think it was called an inn. And immediately she just goes right to the door, and this bouncer just lets her in. Like, there is no, like, for her waiting in line. Oh, no, like, she can just go right in because I guess she just looks hot enough. So, but of course she does. She's the main character of this movie. So Cell goes into this place, this almost nightclub bar-ish like place. And when she goes on and meets her first guy that she's to go on and see, and it seems that everybody's to go on and ask Cell if she's a foreigner. I don't know why that is. Like, everyone calls her like a foreigner, and like, I guess it's because I guess she may not like understand their customs or how their money works or whatever, but still, like, I just don't get how everyone, it seems, is asking her if she's a foreigner. Like, I guess maybe that's a weird alien joke. I don't know what's going on here. But so this guy is starting to talk with Cell, and all of a sudden this other woman just barges in and is like throwing herself onto this guy and lip locking and whatever. And like, she wants to go on and take this guy and like go go out with him, but then she wants to go to the bathroom. So we have Cell that follows this woman to the bathroom, and so she's adjusting her goods, and she just kind of makes a comment about it, like, well, hey, you got to do everything you can, right? So the girl goes in the bathroom stall, And Cell's like, all right, well, I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna get to this girl. So as this woman takes a dump, there's a hand that goes through the wall and then through this woman, and she gets killed. Because I guess this is like a predatory thing. Like if a woman is to go after a uh, another person's like man, then that woman would go on and like want to kill that other woman, um, to keep her man. So da, da, da. So the manhunt group makes their way to the hotel, the motor hotel, and they find the camera footage of this girl, but it's not all that good. So they have to send uh, the footage to get kind of cleaned out. So they're like, man, we still don't have a good picture on her. So they ask, like, well, hey, like, have you seen where she went? And so the guy explains, well, yeah, I told her to go to this location, so because she's looking for man, or she's looking for men. And like, oh my god, all right, like she's, uh, like, I guess she's, like looking to mate. So Cell continues to make her way through this establishment to find that there is to be this long haired guy who I believe through IMDb his name is Robbie. So to me, I don't know if this is actually the same guy or not. But this looked like the exact same guy from the movie Die Hard who ends up going on and calling Bruce Willis John Boy. And uh he looks just like him, but I don't think it's that exact same guy. But just facially wise, they look similar. So, uh, so Sal is now just like to have taken off her shirt and now just has a bra, and so she throws her arm onto Robbie and saying like, well, hey, like I'm going to a party or I'm going something somewhere, and Robbie I guess has to do something about it, which is just to take her on home instead of going to this party. I don't know, it just doesn't quite make sense to me. So this other rando woman stumbles upon the bathroom to realize that there is a dead person in it, and so she screams. So the manhunting team make their way to this nightclub, to this inn, to this whatever this location was called, and they find the dead person in the bathroom. And while that's going on, Cell's getting driven away by Robbie to his home. So Finch is telling Preston, it's like, well, hey, nobody leaves this club, and I mean nobody. And so all these helicopters are flying around, and Robbie's like, man, uh, like all kinds of craziness happens here. So Robbie drives on home, and so Preston is talking to the bouncer to be like, well, hey, like, did you see this blonde? Like, where, like, who do you think she ended up with? And so the guy ends up saying that it's Robbie's character. So they're like, okay, like we just need to go on and figure out where this guy lives. So Robbie and Cell, they're at this home together, transitioning back to there. So Robbie's going on and saying that like, well, hey, like I'm gonna take a shower. Do you want a shower? I'm gonna take a shower. Shower. So Robbie goes to the shower, and so Cell just like follows him in there, and so he like, and he's like, ah. So like he cleans himself up, and he's now going on and just wanting um Cell to just take off her top here. So he's looking at her, and so all of a sudden, Cell changes her mind about this guy. It's like, you know what? I think I want to go on, and I think I want to go on home. And the guy is just like, nah, like we're here, like what? Like why aren't we gonna go on and do this? Come to find out, the guy is a diabetic, and I guess Cell can sniff that out. And they say that in the movie that I guess since he is an insulin user, that like he isn't good enough for Cell. So, but if anything, Robbie wants this to happen anyways because he's like, well, you know what, like you say no, but I don't know. So Robbie wants to go on and have this passionate sesh uh with Cell, and that just kind of ticks her off. So much so that she goes on and takes this guy's like head, and she does a little bit more than a French kiss through his skull, killing him. I'm like, yeah, freaking awesome. What a great scene. So Preston and Laura make their way to Robbie's place, and also I think the SWAT team might have been there. Like so, no, the whole team, the whole crew came there. I'm thinking of John later on, where it's just Preston and Laura. But so the team make their way to Robbie's house as Cell had gone on and been in the shower and is kind of just cleaning herself. So by the time the team make it to Robbie's house, they find him dead, and then they start to realize, like, okay, uh, did this girl go on and get what she wanted out of this guy? Like, I don't think she did. And so they're just kind of like, okay, uh, this is what she needs. Like, okay, so we're going on and trying to figure this all out here. So, and here's where they go on and also figure out that this guy was a diabetic. So, like, she did not go on and want this guy, but like Laura figures out, well, like, but still this guy had pissed her off, so she killed him because of it. And also, like, she kills when she feels threatened. So they go back to Cell's uh hotel room, and they find out that she is to have her time of the month, let's say, that she's bleeding. And so because Laura ends up going on and ends up taking a sample, it's like, all right, if we can figure this out, then like we're definitely gonna know if she's uh like wanting to mate or not. So Laura, Cell drives by the hotel, realizing that the team is already there, so she drives off. Dan ends up telling the team uh that Cell will not come back here, and kind of strategizes like where eventually she will eventually make her way uh, to, possibly. So Cell wakes up in this empty parking lot where she is to have this dream, I guess, about two aliens is doing it. So Cell wakes up and is to just start to drive off, and her car runs out of gas. So let me pause here for just 1 second. All right. Yeah, so I was expecting like something to happen, and come to find out um it's gonna probably happen just tomorrow anyways. So I was like, okay, all right, well, like we're not doing that then. because uh, I was expecting uh, groceries, but I guess that's just gonna happen tomorrow. So well, Oakley dokley. So that's why I paused. So Sel's car runs out of gas, so she just gets out of the car, and we all of a sudden have this skateboarder that gets distracted by Sel's looks and ends up causing this car to swerve out of the way to then hit Sel. Sel goes through this just glass booth of some kind, and so this guy, I believe his name is John, ends up finding Sel and gets her into his car to drive to the hospital so she can survive. Uh, and he also makes a phone call. So I don't know if he calls the ambulance or if he drives her there, but either way, she gets to the hospital regardless. So they end up finding Robbie's car and they end up looking at it. It's like, well, okay, all right. Like, so this car just doesn't have gas in it. So Finch and his team are trying to go on and they're trying to clean up the photo, and it never really seems that they can go on and find a good enough photo of this person, even when John goes on and takes a Polaroid of him and her together. Still, like, the photo doesn't come out very well. So John is at this hospital, and it seems that Sel doesn't have any insurance. So he goes on and just throws his credit card to this nurse Susan, and Susan's like, "Wow, like, you're a really nice guy that's just willing to just take care of this girl." And so John's like, "Well, yeah, just might as well just take after this beautiful woman that just fell into my lap." No, like, this guy is just being nice. So this doctor is looking over Sel, and he's noticing her shoulder, and the shoulder ends up rehealing itself, and he's just like, "Oh my god, did you see that woman's shoulder?" And then he is just dumbfounded by it. He's just like, ah, and he's just like following her, and he's just like, "That woman's shoulder just healed itself, oh my god." So Sel just walks out of the hospital because she's fine and makes her way stumbling back to John. And John's like, "So, did doctors release you? Like, you definitely should not be, like, walking around right now and being fine. Like, you should almost be close to dead. But, like, you're okay? Like, the doctors just let you in, like," and the girl's like, "Yeah, like, I'm fine. Let's go." So the manhunt team finds the car, and so Dan sits in it to go on and point out that she went there. And I'm like, well, yeah, she probably had to go somewhere, right? Like, I'm sure she went in that location. So we have John, we have Sel. So they end up taking a Polaroid together. And so one of the suits had gone on and told the manhunt team that there had been this unusual report of this doctor with this odd patient. So they had to go and look into it. So they went to this hospital. And so Preston and Laura are going on and doing this investigation. So Susan is telling her story about how John had gone on and taken over for this insurance, this girl that didn't have insurance. So, like, aha, it must just be her. So they also come to find the doctor who'd gone on and seeing this girl just kind of regrow her shoulder. So we have one point where Preston ends up giving Laura us, would you like some candy? So in their car, they look up the information of John. They find his address, and so they're tracking him down. So Laura tries to call John's phone, and she's like, well, what do I say? And Preston's like, well, just tell him that he's going to have sex with a terrestrial being. I'm sure he'll be on board with that. So John and Sel are really heavily making it out within this pool. Making out in this pool. And Sel is basically without clothes within this pool anyways. And she's thrusting John's shorts out, and he's like, whoa, 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 like, not so fast. Like, we have all the time in the world. Come on. Like, so, but the two of them continue to kiss even when John is to hear his phone go off. Sel is to grab him and pull him back into the pool. So, Laura and Preston make their way to John's location, and Sel is to seemingly know that they're there. And John is like, what? So both Laura and Preston, it's like, well, yeah, like, we know how this story goes. John is probably dead already. So, like, we might as well just kind of scoot around the house to just kind of see if we can get to John and see if he's still alive and if Sel is still here so we can kind of get to them. So Sel shoves John under the water to start to drown him, and then she takes her tethers into him, or slithers into him, and also when John is to try to get out of the pool, we have Sel that is telling John, it's like, I want a baby, and John's like, what? And so she shoves him into the pool, and her face bubbles out, and so she's putting him into the water, and so she's like shoving everything that she can into this guy to just really just drown and kill him here. So that's more than likely why she didn't get a stool sample, or in this case a man juice sample. So as Preston and Laura make their way through the side of this house, we have Sel that is going on and turning her human eye into an alien one. And as Laura and Preston make their way in to this place, they find John dead, and they are then going on and trying to look within the backyard of this place to just kind of see if they can spot anything. Which the only thing that they actually spot is just a squirrel on Laura's neck. We also come to find that the alien is kind of from afar, peepholing what is to just really be seen here. So Finch is going on and talking over with the group, and so Dave eventually is talking to Finch. It's like, man, like, I'm not a person that is really good with blood, but I guess I'm just kind of getting used to it now. And uh and Steven makes a good point here about, I think this is where he tries to figure out if there's any like semen samples or whatever that I think he needs to go on and find to be sure if Sel didn't go on and bed this guy, or in this case pool this guy. So Sal is now naked running around town, and so she goes on and finds a woman in her car. And so Sal runs in this person's car. It's like, you gotta help me. And the girl's like, what happened? And so the manhunt team goes on and finds the Polaroid that John took, and they realize that they cannot see actually the Sal's face. So they're like, man, we just can't catch a break on this. So come to find out, Sal had commandeered this woman's car and made her way back to where the manhunt is going on. And so she's watching the team talk, and so she's reading their lips. And so it seems that their plan is to go on and go back to the club to stake it out, to think that that's going to be a place of where she's going to go back to, which is actually wrong. She's just going to eventually start to follow them and find them out. So both Preston and Laura are talking, and so uh, Laura ends up talking about how like she's always ever wanted to find a man like Preston, as a little bit of a joke between the two of them. And so all four of them are together, and so Steven ends up asking like, "Hey guys, like, do you want to grab a bite? You want to grab a meal or something?" And recently, like, Steven ends up just going and forcibly just having a meal with Dan. So Sel is watching uh now Preston, because she's starting to fantasize about him, that she can go on and have him be the possible mate that she wants to just try to get to. So Sal is starting to follow Preston through the elevator, and she's starting to like have these dreams about Preston taking off his shirt uh to just kind of like, I'm here, baby, I'm here for you. So Sel wakes up next to her tied up roomie, the girl that she kidnapped. And so Sel ends up asking the girl about like, well, hey, like, do you get nightmares? Like, I get nightmares. Or do you get dreams? I get dreams. So of course the woman is to want to go on and try to escape here, and Sel is to decide that she is going to cut off her fingers to have them grow back, so that way she can use them as a DNA thing to prove that she's dead later on. And then also she cuts off the fingers of this girl's fingers to, I guess, be like, oh yeah, like they don't want any proof that this girl is to be who she is. So Cell goes on and is to throw uh this bloodied uh this bloodied up towel or whatever, bloodied up paper towel, into the trash. So Cell goes on to find this high voltage spot where she will eventually later on crash into, so she can make this whole huge explosion. And then she goes on and finds a plethora of containers that she can fill up with gas. So at this club, we have Steven, that I think at this point concludes that this is all just a goose chase and they're kind of wasting their time. And Dan goes outside into the back of this club and is starting to just kind of feel and think that there's something there, and here's where the next jump scare happens. So Dan eventually goes on to see Cell, and so she is to just look right at him and just be like, "Hey, I'm here." And so Dan runs up to be like, "Hey guys, she's here, she's here." So Cell gets into a car. They all run off and chase after her, and so she ends up ramming into this high voltage thing. But before the car makes true impact, she dismantles the car door and jumps out, and she uses like the human body as, I guess, to be like, well, there has to be some kind of like skeleton-esque like thing here. So Cell jumps out and is to be kind of sneakingly getting away, as everyone is to just think that she's dead now. And these helicopters end up shooting off these rockets to make sure that she's dead. They like neutralize her as Cell makes her way to another car as this fire truck is driving by. So they see the finger samples, and they're thinking like, wait a minute, like this can't be over. Like there's no way that this is just wrapped up here. And then we end up seeing Cell, who has dyed her hair brown. So they're thinking that they're like, okay, well, like she's dead. All right, well, let's just go to the bar and just be victorious here. So they're all at this bar, and so Steven and Dan are getting a little drunk. They're getting their uh God, what is it called? Their iced teas or whatever. Their alcoholic tea beverages. And oh, Long Island iced tea. That's what I was trying to think here. So Laura ends up asking Preston to dance, and Preston is going on and seeing this long haired blonde, and he grabs her. And Laura's looking at Preston, and it's like, man, like you really can't let this go. Like you really wanted to, like, in your own way, like wrap up this case. And Preston's like, you know what? In my gut, I feel that this case is not done. Like I just have this feeling. So Preston makes his way back to the guys as Laura's like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go on for the night. And Dan is looking at Preston's like, you know what? Like I think you should go after her. Like I think she definitely wants uh like you to chase after her. So Laura goes to this bathroom, and Cell is there with her brown hair. And so she finds that Laura is having this perfume. It's like, oh, is that a thing that guys like? And Laura's like, no, I think it's repellent. So Finch is going on. He's at this elevator. So there's also that awkward moment where like Laura walks off, and Finch is just like, oh, hi. It's really awkward. So Preston goes on, and he follows up to get to Laura, and come to find out Cell is in the elevator with him. And he notices that Cell has the same scent as Laura, and he brings it up. It's like, oh, that's a really nice perfume that you got on. So Preston makes his way to Laura's room. She answers it, and so eventually this leads to the two of them just going at it. And so we have Steven, we have Dan, and they're at the bar. They're like, well, hey, like, look at those two women over there. Like, hey, we can get with those women. And Dan's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, women don't usually like me. So Cell is going on, on the room next to Laura and Preston, is just kind of hearing the noises going off, and Stella is to have her fantasy within her mind going. So Steven is trying to go on and get with these women while Preston and Laura's giving Preston a bit of a blowy here. She's like, "Yeah, drop those pants," and so on and so forth. So Steven makes his way back to his room, and Cell is in there, and Steven doesn't really give much thought of anything that Cell's really saying here. He just buys into it because, like, Cell's like, "Well, yeah, I just snuck into your room because I asked for a key, and I saw you earlier, and I just wanted to get to you," and so we just go on to have Steven, who just buys this hook, line, and sinker without any doubts, any questioning, nothing. He just like, okay, like, and so she just starts to disrobe, and so does he. So Dan has this feeling as he's in his bed, and he goes to the bathroom. He's kind of just washing his face, and he's just like, no, I have this feeling. So Steven and Cell are giving it the old 1-2-1-2, the old back and forth, not the old slurp, the old slurm. I don't know. I don't know what other goofy analogy that I can go on and just say here. They're giving it the old thrust. They're giving it the old para para. The old drum roll. So Dan can't shake the fact that he knows that Cell is here, and so Dan goes to Steven's room, and he feels at the door that Steven is not alone. So Steven then goes to Laura slash Preston's room, and Preston answers the door, and so Dan explains all this. He's like, you know, and I think that Steven is not alone, and I think that really just Cell has to be here. And so Preston's like, you know what? I believe you. Let's go. Like, I let me just get dressed, and we'll figure this out. So Steven was to go on and ask Cell about, like, well, what about protection? And like they just kind of shrug it off. But again, I guess Steven just, we have to write off really that Steven is just really drunk, even though he's a smart guy. But I guess not smart enough in this case. So they're going through the good old fashioned 1-2-1-2, and so Steven ends up giving his uh God, how can I say this? He ends up going on and concluding here, and he's like, "Oh man, all right, well, like that really hit the spot, kind of thing." And so Sal ends up going on, and she's like, "You know what? I can feel it." And Steven's like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Life." And he's just like, "Oh my God, woman!" Like, and so all of a sudden we start to see these like spikes coming out of Sal's back. And then Steven draws the conclusion that's like, oh my God, this is an alien. Oh, I'm screwed. And yeah, he gets freaking slashed in the chest. He's freaking murdered. So Preston is telling Dan, because Finch and Laura are now there. Preston is telling like Dan, it's like, I hope you're right about this, as he bashes through the door. And as he bashes through the door, the alien is bashing its way through this wall and tries to escape. Preston tries to get some shots fired off, but nothing happens. So Preston and Laura are chasing off against this thing as they find that it breaks through this steel door and is making its way through the sewer. Preston goes on and bashes through this van to try to get their weapons out so they can face off against this thing. So they make this way through this somewhat sewer system, and they start to see some dead bodies starting to pile up as they make their way further and further through the spot, as Preston is consistently using his flamethrower weapon to just like see if the alien is there so they can just kind of keep moving here. So they get to this fork in the road where there's these two crossroads where they can go on and go to, and Dan is saying like we have to go here, and Finch is looking at Dan. It's like, you're not even sure, are you? Like, like this girl is messing with your brain, and like I think that you're wrong. And so Finch ends up telling Dan, it's like, no, like we're gonna go here, and you're gonna go with me, as Dan and Preston are gonna go in the other direction. So Dan ends up telling Finch, it's like, no, I'm sure that like she went that way. So Dan is not behind Finch, and so Finch is starting to go alone. And so Finch is consistently calling for Dan. Is that you, Dan? Dan. Dan. So Finch will come to find is to be grabbed by Cell for him to get killed. Sadly enough, yeah, he's gonna die. So Dan is now telling Laura and Preston, like, hey, come on, guys, like, come and find the dead body. So they then make their way to go back to Finch, where because they assume like, okay, well, this must be where the alien is. So the alien is now going on and like going onto these pipes and then splashing back into the water. So they're trying to hunt and track this thing down. And so eventually, when they go further into this sewer system, we have at a point where Cell is going on and like she is pregnant and like she's giving birth to baby. And so Preston is going on through this darker and darker place where he's consistently having to uh, use at some points his weapon just so they can see. So this alien baby ends up getting born, and so they realize that there is all of a sudden this weird looking batch of like liquid that they assume is some kind of oil. So Preston ends up saying that he's going to go on and he's going to be like the decoy to lure the alien to the other two so they can take it out. So Preston goes on his own, and so come to find out, Dan ends up finding the baby alien. And at first, he's going to be all nice and like, well, hey, just kind of come on with us. Just kind of come on over here. And the baby at some point looks at him and just like, just tongue attacks him. So he's like, well, okay, all right. Well, I'm just going to have to just murder you then. As the alien is to start to grow its ugly form and then jumps onto Dan to where Dan has to use his flame weapon to then have it fall onto the water to where all the water is now going to burst into flame. And Dan now is like hanging on this cliff, and he's just trying to hang on for dear life. So Preston runs back to try and help out Dan and Laura, who Laura is to now be stuck, seemingly in uh, the oil spot because she had gotten stuck, and she was calling for help, but then no one was able to really help her because no one gave a like. Eventually, Laura just had to get out of her spot by herself because there was no one really there to help her. So as Preston tries to make his way back, there's a little gap on the ceiling that he walks through that Cell ends up taking her slither nips and slithering out her her snake-ish like things from out of her chest to then choke Preston here. I'm like, all right, cool, this is great. This is actually a smart, clever idea. And so Preston has to take this knife and slice into the knife to then free himself. So, uh, so we have Preston that faces off against the alien, and so he tries to go on and he fires into the alien, and what eventually ends up happening is the alien ends up almost falling into the water, but then as both Laura and Preston are trying to save Dan from his possible fall, we have the alien that goes on and tries to grab Stan, and so then Preston has his one last one liner where he's like, "Get your hands off him, you bitch," or whatever he ends up saying, something like that. And so Preston ends up firing upon the alien that kind of kills the alien here because he has this like kind of really big, massive cannon weapon that he uses. And so the alien dies, and Preston turns to Dan. It's like, man, I thought that was gonna be the last Long Island iced tea that you were ever gonna drink, Dan. Because Dan doesn't go on and I guess drink alcohol, so that was like the first, and that could have possibly have been his last. So weirdly enough, by the end of this film, as our characters make their way out of this location that they were stuck in, and they now are making it to this sewer. Like Laura's like, man, I've never been so happy to see a sewer in my life. They then escape, and then the last thing we see is that there is this rat that is going on and facing off against this other rat that all of a sudden has this long tongue and is grabbing on to this rat and killing it. And that's what we have to assume there is going to be a sequel putting together of this. And Surefire enough, like I would have thought that like Preston or somebody would have called like some kind of quarantine team to make sure that there was no uh, possibility that there could have been another alien coming out of this, because they were talking about how like Cell could have gone on and hatched like a huge number of eggs or babies or whatever the heck. Like they were saying like thousands, like, and like an absurd number of alien babies. So I was like, okay, like so there has to be sequels of this because of how they kind of set that up. And then conveniently there was a whole like franchise and whatever of this movie, surprisingly enough. So with that said, if it seems that Species does surprisingly gangbuster enough, there's more than likely going to be sequels I may review somewhere down the road and then realize that more than likely only this movie would probably be the only one that's popular, and so the only thing rationally to go on and actually do. So without further ado, like this is the one bigger one that I wanted to go on and cover, and then hopefully I could actually cover any of the number of the stuff that I said in past videos I was gonna go on and review at some point. Because I hope that there's not going to be anything newer things that's just gonna come to mind. Uh, and I can finally get on to these previous things that I've said in the past that I wanted to talk about actually done. Uh, what I hope to also continue to say that I'm going to go on and hopefully accomplish soon. There is a Sharon Stone movie with Baldwin in it, and it's called Sliver. And I hope to review that soon, or re-review it soon, because I've already technically reviewed it, but I'm going to re-review it at some point. As well as also going on and possibly covering um, some newer content. There's a plethora of different movies that I have in mind that may be in the horror genre, but then also it all depends on whatever I wake up the next day and think about reviewing, because I end up going through all these odd avenues of like, okay, this is going to be the main key one that I'm thinking about doing today. I think will be the best bet of making the best impact on the channel. There is stuff like Spiderwick Chronicles and a bunch of these other kind of weird, goofy movies that I'm just like, man, like I'm really doing this in the channel. But then again, I'm like, well, hey, uh, like things have really just surprised me more. And then also, I've like day by day, I'll just kind of remember these certain movies that I was thinking about reviewing in the past, and I'm like, well, yeah, like why don't I finally get to this? Why don't I finally seek this out? There's also a movie called Drugstore Cowboy that kind of just bizarrely, while watching interviews today, I was to hear about. I'm like, maybe this might be something interesting. But then again, who knows? But with that said, I'm gonna get the heck out of here because I know that this movie is like an hour and 48 minutes and creeping on to an hour and 40. So I'm sorry for how long these videos are, and then also probably the good stuff is probably all the early stuff, or even maybe not even that. But regardless, I did this review. I'm happy that I got it accomplished, so I can go on and accomplish so much more um, later on. So with that, I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.